To all our wonderful and loyal viewers tuning in from every corner of the globe at Cheating Truth Lab, we truly want to know, where exactly are you watching from today? Drop your city and country in the comments. We love seeing our international family come together. Alright, without wasting another moment, let's dive straight into today's powerful and gripping story of justice, revenge, and redemption. Chapter 1. The Collegian Victor Parsons sat quietly at his wooden desk in the study, carefully grading a stack of his students' history papers under the soft glow of his lamp. The red digital numbers on his old desk clock showed exactly 3:47 p.m. when his phone suddenly rang, shattering the peaceful afternoon silence. Emma, his beloved 13-year-old daughter, should have already returned home from her soccer practice by now. When he answered, the voice on the other end belonged to his wife, Kendra. She sounded completely strained, panicked, and on the verge of breaking down. Victor. There's been a terrible accident. Emma's been rushed to the hospital. The papers in his hand scattered across the floor like falling leaves as Victor shot up from his chair in pure shock and fear. His heart pounded violently against his ribs. Without wasting a single second, he grabbed his keys and raced out the door. Just 20 minutes later, he was sprinting through the long, brightly lit corridors of St. Mary's Hospital, his footsteps echoing urgently. He finally found Kendra in the crowded waiting room. Her mascara had run down her tear-streaked cheeks, and she clutched a crumpled tissue tightly in her trembling hands. She was crossing at the light right after practice. Kendra whispered, her voice shaking. Some reckless kid in a flashy sports car ran the red light at least 50 miles per hour. He hit her and just drove off like a coward. But a witness managed to get the license plate number. Victor's jaw tightened with barely controlled rage. In his 15 long years of teaching high school history, he had learned to keep his temper in check and maintain a calm exterior for his students. Yet deep inside, old instincts from his previous life were beginning to stir awake, dark, dangerous instincts he had deliberately buried. When he chose the peaceful path of becoming a devoted teacher instead of continuing his shadowy work with the agency. Moments later, Dr. Lillian Meadows emerged from the trauma bay, still wearing her surgical scrubs that were slightly damp from the intense work. Her expression was serious, but professional. "Mr. and Mrs. Parsons," she began gently. "Emma is stable for now. She has several broken ribs, a concussion, and some internal bleeding that we've managed to get under control. She's very lucky. It could have been so much worse." A massive wave of relief washed over Victor, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, calculated, and burning anger that settled deep in his chest. "Doctor, when will we be able to see her?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "She's resting comfortably under sedation right now. The medicines will help her sleep through the night. You can see her first thing in the morning." As Victor and Kendra walked slowly toward the parking garage, still processing everything, Detective Jerry Dixon approached them. He was a thin man, with kind but tired eyes. However, Victor could clearly see the deep frustration and helplessness written all over the detective's face. "Mr. Parsons," the detective said respectfully, "I wanted to give you a personal update. We traced the license plate. The car belongs to Kyle Sutton, the son of Gordon Sutton, the powerful CEO of Sutton Industries." Detective Dixon paused, looking visibly uncomfortable. "The problem is, the kid isn't cooperating. He claims he was home all day, and his father has already brought in an entire team of high-powered lawyers. Witnesses saw him," Kendra said, her voice rising with emotion. "I know, ma'am," Dixon replied sadly. "But Sutton's legal team is pushing the mistaken identity angle very hard, and they're trying to get the entire case dismissed. Word around town is that Gordon Sutton holds enormous influence here." Victor studied the detective's face carefully. He recognized that look immediately, the expression of a good, honest cop who was hitting a solid wall of corruption and raw power. "What aren't you telling us, Detective Victor?" Victor asked directly. Dixon glanced around nervously, then lowered his voice to almost a whisper. "Between us, this isn't Kyle Sutton's first time causing serious trouble. He had a DUI last year. Assault charges that mysteriously disappeared 6 months ago. His father always makes these problems vanish. The Sutton family practically owns half this city, including some people who really should know better." That same night, Victor sat motionless beside his daughter's hospital bed, watching her sleep peacefully despite the tubes and wires connected to her small body. A massive, ugly bruise covered the entire left side of her young face. Kendra had finally gone home to shower and change clothes, leaving him alone with his thoughts. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in over 5 long years. Nathaniel Kemp speaking. Nate, it's Victor. There was a brief, heavy pause on the other end. Victor Parsons. Well, I'll be damned. I thought you had gone completely civilian on us for good. I did. But right now, I need a favor. Name it. Gordon Sutton. Sutton Industries. What do you know about him? Enough to know you don't want to mess with a man like that unless you have a very good reason. What's this about? Victor told him everything. The accident, Emma's injuries, Kyle's cowardly escape, and Gordon's arrogant threats. When he finished, a long, heavy silence filled the line. Jesus, Victor? I'm truly sorry. How's your little girl doing? If you recover physically. But Sutton believes his money and connections make him completely untouchable. Might, the man has politicians, judges, and half the police department in his deep pockets. And he's ruthless. He built his entire empire by destroying anyone who ever stood in his way. Victor's voice grew cold and determined. See, then he's about to learn what happens when he crushes the wrong family. Chapter 2. The Ultimatum. The next morning, Emma finally woke up and immediately asked for her father. Victor sat beside her, holding her small hand gently as she recounted the terrifying moments of the accident in a weak voice. I had the green light. Then I heard this loud roar of an engine. And then everything went black until I woke up here. Her soccer uniform had been cut away in the emergency room. But she still wore the lucky bracelet Victor had given her on her 13th birthday. Dad, are they going to catch the person who hit me? She asked with innocent hope in her eyes. Victor squeezed her hand softly and looked into her eyes with absolute conviction. Yes, sweetheart. I promise you that with everything I am. At noon, Detective Dixon called with even worse news. The DA's office just contacted me. They're not filing charges. They claim insufficient evidence. The witness testimony isn't strong enough, and without Kyle's confession or more proof, they can't move forward. I see, Victor replied, his voice eerily calm and controlled. Mr. Parsons, I want you to know some of us really did. Try. There are still good people in this department who are disgusted by how this is being handled. I understand. Detective, thank you for everything you've done. Victor then drove straight downtown to the gleaming 40-story tower that served as the headquarters of Sutton Industries. The massive lobby was designed with expensive marble and glass to intimidate anyone who walked in. He took the elevator all the way to the top floor. There, Gordon Sutton's executive assistant, Beverly Chambers, sat behind an enormous desk. Need to see Mr. Sutton immediately? Victor said calmly. Do you have an appointment? She asked politely. Tell him Victor Parsons is here about his son Kyle and my daughter Emma. Beverly's professional smile instantly faltered. She picked up her phone, spoke quietly, and then hung up. Double quotes. Mr. Sutton will see you now. Gordon Sutton's luxurious office took up half the entire top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city below. The man himself was tall, broad-shouldered, with perfectly styled silver hair and expensive tailored clothes. Yet nothing could hide the cold cruelty shining in his eyes. He didn't even bother standing up when Victor entered. Mr. Parsons, Gordon began smoothly, I understand you're quite upset about this unfortunate situation involving your daughter. Situation? Victor repeated, keeping his voice dangerously level. Your son nearly killed a 13-year-old girl and then fled the scene like a coward. Gordon waved his hand dismissively. Allegedly. And even if Kyle was somehow involved, which I'm not admitting, boys will be boys. Accidents happen all the time. This wasn't an accident, Victor said firmly. This was criminal negligence at the very least. Gordon stood up, his voice hardening. Now listen here. I've been patient because I understand you're emotional, but my son has diplomatic immunity through my international business connections. Even if charges were filed, which they won't be, nothing would stick. I own Judge Theodore Cherry, who would handle this case. I strongly suggest you accept the generous insurance settlement my lawyers will offer and move on with your life. Victor stepped closer to the massive desk, his presence suddenly imposing. You have no idea who you're talking to? Gordon laughed loudly, a harsh and mocking sound. You're just a high school history teacher from the suburbs. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. Nobody important. Victor checked his watch calmly. You have 10 minutes to call the police and arrange for Kyle to turn himself in. The laughter grew even louder. Or what? You'll sue me. File a complaint. I've crushed men twice your size for far less insolence. Victor glanced at his watch again. 9 minutes and 40 seconds. Security.
Gordon! Shouted. That
Won't be necessary, Victor said calmly, as he headed toward the door. You'll be hearing from me again very soon. As the elevator descended, Victor was already making several important calls. The first one went to Nate. I need everything you have on Gordon Sutton, financial records, business dealings, personal secrets, everything. Victor, what exactly are you planning? Nate asked with concern. Justice, Victor replied. Simply. Chapter 3. The gathering storm later, that evening. Back in his quiet study, Victor opened his laptop and began working methodically. On the surface, Victor Parsons appeared to be nothing more than a beloved and respected history teacher at Lincoln High School, a loving husband to Kendra the librarian, and a devoted father to his soccer-loving daughter Emma. But beneath that ordinary life lay a completely different reality. For 12 intense years, Victor had served in a highly classified division of the Defense Intelligence Agency. He specialized in extracting critical information and high-value assets from the most hostile environments imaginable. He spoke 6 different languages fluently, could neutralize a threat in 17 different ways, and had once single-handedly dismantled a major corruption ring in Eastern Europe using nothing but patience, intelligence, and the enemy's own greed. He had retired the moment Emma was born, determined to give his daughter a safe, normal childhood with a father who came home every single night. The agency had been extremely reluctant to release someone with his rare skill set, but they eventually agreed on the condition that he would remain available if truly extreme circumstances ever arose. His phone rang. Nate's voice sounded grim on the other end. I've got the preliminary report on Sutton. Victor, this guy is even worse than we feared. Sutton Industries looks clean on paper, but there are dozens of shell companies, secret offshore accounts, and some very shady government contracts. What kind of contracts? Victor asked. Mostly arms dealing. Nothing technically illegal on the surface, but he's been supplying gray area clients. There's also clear evidence of bribing foreign officials, price fixing, and systematically destroying competitors. The man built his entire empire on corruption and fear. And his personal life. Divorced twice, forced wives, received massive settlements with ironclad non-disclosure agreements. Kyle is his only son, spoiled beyond belief since the day he was born. The kid already has a long record of drunk driving, assault, and rumors of far worse things that never reached court. Victor took detailed notes. Anything else? Yeah. Gordon has a brother named Eugene Sutton who handles all the legal dirty work. Former prosecutor who went into private practice. Word is, he's just as corrupt as Gordon, but twice as intelligent. If you go after this family, you're taking on both of them at once. After ending the call, Victor pulled out a completely secure phone that technically didn't exist and dialed a number in Washington. Judge Theodore Cherry. A voice answered. Judge Cherry, this is Victor Parsons. I believe you already know why I'm calling. A nervous laugh came through the line. I'm sorry, Mr. Parsons, but I don't know what you mean. 48 hours ago, my daughter was nearly killed by Kyle Sutton. Today, Gordon Sutton openly bragged to my face that he owns you. I could report this conversation to the FBI's Public Corruption Unit right now, but I'm giving you one chance to explain yourself. The line went completely silent for a long moment. Mr. Parsons, there must be some misunderstanding. In 2019, you received a $400,000 loan from a subsidiary of Sutton Industries to purchase your vacation home in the Hamptons. That loan was quietly forgiven just 8 months later, right before you dismissed the charges against Kyle Sutton for his first DUI. Should I continue? Who are you exactly? I'm simply a father who wants justice for his daughter. You have 24 hours to recuse yourself from any Sutton-related cases and announce your early retirement for health reasons. If you don't, that private conversation you had with Gordon Sutton about dismissing charges against Kyle will be broadcast on every news channel in the state. I never had any such conversation. Judge Cherry. I have recordings. Good evening. Victor hung up and immediately called Detective Dixon. Detective, hypothetically speaking, if powerful new evidence suddenly appeared in my daughter's hit-and-run case, would you be willing to pursue it aggressively? Absolutely. Dixon replied without hesitation. What if I told you Kyle Sutton's car has front-end damage he's desperately trying to hide? What if I also told you there's clear security footage from a private traffic camera showing Kyle's face behind the wheel? That would change everything. But we already checked all the city cameras. You checked the city ones. You didn't check the private security system at the bank on the corner. The one that automatically uploads everything to a secure cloud server that even Gordon Sutton can't touch. Detective Dixon's voice filled with excitement. Ken, you get me that footage? It will be on your desk tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock sharp. Along with photos of the damaged vehicle and a witness ready to testify that Gordon Sutton personally asked him to destroy evidence. Mr. Parsons, how exactly are you obtaining all this? Victor smiled slightly, for the first time since the accident. Let's just say I possess a very particular set of skills. Detective skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make people like Gordon Sutton have very bad days. Chapter 4. The web titan's Gordon Sutton was sitting comfortably in his luxurious office the next morning, sipping his freshly brewed Colombian coffee while casually flipping through the pages of the Wall Street Journal. The city skyline sparkled outside his massive windows. Suddenly, his executive assistant Beverly burst through the heavy oak doors, her face pale with shock and disbelief. Mr. Sutton, you need to see this right away, she said urgently. Gordon slowly lowered his newspaper. What is it? Judge Theodore Cherry just announced his immediate retirement. He cited serious health concerns. It's all over the news. Gordon placed his coffee cup down with deliberate calmness, but his eyes narrowed dangerously. Health concerns. He was perfectly fine yesterday. There's more, sir, Beverly continued, her voice trembling slightly. Detective Dixon just arrived with a search warrant to inspect Kyle's car. They're already at the estate. That's impossible, Gordon snapped, rising from his chair. Cherry assured me everything was under control. Sir, Judge Cherry is no longer on the case. The warrant was issued by Judge Faith Pierce. She's not one of our people? Gordon's face turned dark with fury. He immediately grabbed his phone and dialed his son's number. It went straight to voicemail. Kyle, call me back immediately. Do not speak to anyone until you talk to me first. His next call was to his brother Eugene. We have a serious problem. I already know, Eugene replied grimly. I'm watching the news right now. They have security footage, clear footage of Kyle behind the wheel, running that red light. How is that even possible? Gordon roared. I had my people check every single camera in a 6-block radius. It came from the First National Bank's private security system. Apparently, this Victor Parsons knew exactly which camera to access. Gordon began pacing behind his massive desk like a caged lion. Who the hell is this man? Run a full background check. I want everything. Birth certificate, school records, tax returns, every detail of his life. It's already being done, Eugene said. But Gordon, we need to get ahead of this immediately. Kyle should turn himself in with our lawyers and negotiate a plea deal. Absolutely not, Gordon shot back. I don't care what it costs. My son is not going to prison. An hour later, Eugene arrived at the office, carrying a thick, confidential file. His expression was darker than Gordon had ever seen. Gordon, we have a much bigger problem than I initially thought. What did you find? Victor Parsons is not just an ordinary high school teacher. He spent 12 years in classified operations with the Defense Intelligence Agency. The records are heavily redacted, but from what I could gather, this man is highly trained in psychological operations, advanced surveillance, interrogation techniques, and asset extraction from hostile territories. Gordon felt an icy chill run down his spine. One operation involved him single-handedly exposing a massive corruption scandal in the Balkans that reached all the way to the Prime Minister. Another time, he destroyed a human trafficking network by turning the criminals against each other from within. He's extremely dangerous. How does a man like that end up teaching history to teenagers? Gordon asked, almost in disbelief. He wanted a normal life for his daughter. But men with his background don't simply forget their training. If anything, they become more lethal when they have something worth protecting. Before Gordon could respond, Beverly rushed in again. Mr. Sutton, the FBI is here. They want to speak with you about your government contracts. Gordon's blood ran cold. That's impossible. Those contracts are sealed and protected. Sir, they have documents. Detailed financial records. They're asking about bribes to foreign officials and illegal arms sales. As chaos began unfolding, Gordon's phone rang with an unknown number. Mr. Sutton. Victor's calm, measured voice came through clearly. You had 10 minutes to do the right thing. You chose to laugh at me instead. Now you're learning the consequences of crossing the wrong man. You can't touch me, Gordon snarled. I have connections you couldn't even dream of. Had connections, Victor corrected coldly. Judge Cherry retired this morning. Your FBI contacts are now under investigation. Your precious arms contracts are being reviewed by a congressional committee as we speak. Gordon's hands began shaking with rage and fear. What do you want from me? Kyle turns himself in. Full confession. No deals. He faces real justice for what he did to my daughter. This isn't a negotiation, Mr. Sutton. This is a reckoning. The line went dead, Chapter 5. Unraveling, Kyle Sutton was hiding in the back booth of Murphy's Tavern, a dark, run-down bar on the rough side of town. He was on his fourth whiskey, trying to drown his fear. His phone showed 17 missed calls from his father. But he couldn't bring himself to answer. A middle-aged man with graying temples and sharp, intelligent eyes suddenly slid into the booth across from him. Kyle Sutton, the man said quietly. Kyle looked up, instantly sensing danger. Who the hell are you? Someone who knows exactly what happened 2 days ago. The cocaine in your system? The fact you were leaving Vince Castro's drug spot on 5th Street. The real reason you ran away instead of helping that little girl. Kyle's face went completely white. How could you possibly know all that? Because I make it my business to know the truth, Kyle. The real question is, what are you going to do about it now? My father will handle this, Kyle muttered. Your father is currently watching his entire empire collapse. FBI raids, congressional investigations, frozen accounts. He has much bigger problems than covering up your mess this time. The man slid a business card across the table. It read, Al Woodard, attorney at law. You have 2 choices. Wait for the police to find you, and they will, and face the full charges. Vehicular assault, leaving the scene, DUI, and drug possession. Or you can turn yourself in tonight, cooperate fully, and get a significantly reduced sentence. Kyle stared at the documents. My father will never allow this. Your father's protection was always an illusion, the man said firmly. The only person who can save you now is you. Meanwhile, across town, Eugene Sutton was facing the worst day of his legal career. 3 major clients had already terminated their contracts after the FBI raids hit the headlines. His private phone rang. It was Gordon. We need to meet. Somewhere completely secure. Murphy's Storage on Industrial Boulevard, Unit 247. 1 hour. When Eugene arrived, he found Gordon looking like he had aged 10 years overnight. Surrounded by boxers and filing cabinets. They froze all my accounts, Gordon said hoarsely. Personal, business, offshore, everything. Eugene sat down heavily. This Parsons guy isn't working alone. This level of coordination requires serious resources. Gordon's phone buzzed with a text. Check the news. They turned on the small TV. The breaking news headline read, CEO's son surrenders in hit-and-run case. Gow. Himself and then given a full confession. Gordon collapsed into a chair in shock. He betrayed me. Then Kyle called Eugene from jail. Uncle Eugene. I told them everything about the cocaine. Running the light. Dad telling me to hide. The car? They already knew it all. Before hanging up, Kyle delivered one final message. The man who convinced me said Dad has 8 minutes left. Chapter 6. The price of arrogance. Gordon's phone rang again. Victor Parsons. What do you want? Gordon asked, his voice cracking with desperation. In the next hour, you're going to understand exactly what happens when you threaten my family. Victor replied coldly. I'll pay you anything. Name your price. The price isn't money. The price is everything you built on corruption, fear, and intimidation. Within minutes, Gordon's lawyer called with devastating news. The Department of Justice had filed a full RICO case against Sutton Industries, racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy. They were seizing everything. Later that night, the 2 Sutton brothers sat in the storage unit when they received a text directing them to Unit 249. When they opened the door, Victor Parsons was calmly sitting in a folding chair with a laptop. Flanked by 2 imposing ex-military men, Victor looked at them with quiet authority. Please, sit down. He explained in clear, unflinching terms how their empire had been completely dismantled through legal and precise methods. Their political connections were under investigation. Their offshore accounts had been seized. Their son was in jail. Their company was under federal receivership. You threatened the wrong family, Victor said. Real power isn't about money or influence. It's about preparation, competence, and knowing exactly when and how to strike. As Victor and his men left, he delivered one final blow. That recording where you bragged about owning a federal judge. It's already with the FBI. Enjoy what's left of your evening. Chapter 7. The dominoes fall. The Sutton brothers spent the entire night trapped in the storage unit. By dawn, they were desperately planning to flee using secret offshore funds. But Victor's team had already emptied those accounts and redirected the money to charities and victim support programs. When they reached the private airfield at midnight, federal agents were waiting. Gordon and Eugene were arrested on the spot. As the handcuffs clicked, Gordon saw Victor standing in the shadows. "You said you owned this city," Victor called out. "But you never owned its conscience." Chapter 8. The Trial.
6 months later, Kyle Sutton was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. Gordon received 25 years, and Eugene got 15. The corruption network they had built was completely exposed, leading to 17 more arrests across the city. Victor sat quietly in the courtroom with his family, watching justice take its course. Chapter 9. The Final Lesson. Months later, Victor returned to his normal life as a history teacher. One day, after class, a student asked him about power and justice. Victor smiled warmly and said, "Power isn't about money or connections. Real power comes from knowledge, preparation, courage, and the willingness to stand up for what's right. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things when it matters most." That evening, as Victor walked into his house and hugged his wife and daughter, he knew he had made the right choice. His war was no longer in the shadows of the world, it was right here, protecting and shaping the community he loved. This is where our story comes to a powerful end. End of script. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Which part hit you the hardest? Would you like to see more stories like this? If you enjoyed this dramatic tale of justice and redemption, please hit that like button, subscribe to Cheating Truth Lab, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.